Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of the Holistic Buffet. I am very excited for this next episode. We will talk a little bit about values and what everyone learned from our episodes on values. And now we are moving on to another exciting topic called storytelling. And Steve is going to be taking the lead on storytelling. I saw Steve teach the concept of storytelling to a group of individuals in Los Angeles about 2 years ago. And it is amazing to watch what he can do with someone who is uncomfortable speaking in front of an audience in about 1 hour, and watching them tell a story at the beginning, and then after some guidance, tell the same story and watch it just pop with color.
It's a skill. Look, people say storytelling is an art. It's something you're kind of born with. We meet people who are very natural, good storytellers. I'd say you're a natural, good storyteller, Carrie. Would that surprise you?
Yes.
Okay. I'd say naturally you're a very good storyteller. I'd say I was naturally a pretty good storyteller too.
I think part of what makes you an engaging character is that you tend to tell what's happening in your life through stories, because you're so good at it. It's always more interesting to listen to someone, say, "Hey, I've got this story for you," rather than just kind of state some facts of something that happened.
Right. But if we think of stories, they're from the very beginning of time. We can think of the image, right, of whatever your theological beliefs are, and whether you believe in creationism or evolution. But, it's not difficult to think back to ancient times, people sitting around a fire saying, all right, so here I am. I'm only walking down in the desert, right? I see this mammoth coming towards me. I'm thinking to me, telling stories like that, and of bravery, and exaggerating and embellishing, and adding a few little bits of sizzle to the story. That's the way that we teach. That's the way that we teach morals. And again, depending on your theological beliefs, the Holy Scripture is our stories aimed to teach us morals and a code of living. The Torah, the Quran, the Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient. One of the ways of passing on a story was through poems. So, Aristotle and people like that, right from the beginning of the Greeks, and then onto the Romans, and then, of course, famous storytellers like Shakespeare and people like that, up until, today.
Stories come in a variety of forms: poetry, song, movement, pictures, dance, plays, and even dad jokes. The creators of our stories use various mediums such as Braille, sign language, movies, podcasts, all of which are there to share human stories. Stories help us cope. We make sense of our life experiences in part by the stories we learn or we tell ourselves. Imagine a story that a young child might create and revisit. Research actually shows that using expressive writing can help us deal with stressful and traumatic events, and can even positively impact our mental and physical health. I recommend reading Open Up by Writing It Down by Pennebaker, J.W., and Smith, J.M., 2016. Stories help us remember and imagine. We're constantly creating stories. We make up stories in our heads about how our day will go before we head into work or into a social interaction. We tell ourselves stories about the amazing places we can see when we go on vacation or exciting things we do. We tell ourselves stories about how people will treat us and how we'll treat them. We are our stories. Stories help us solve problems and try different solutions by providing opportunities to try out different actions that may lead to different outcomes. This is especially true if another person is helping to co-create a story. Conversations between friends are really storytelling. When we share a problem with a friend, they can give us ideas about ways forward and different options to try and solve personal problems. Stories engage our attention. With the advent of audio books and podcasts, many of us listen to stories as we might exercise, walk, or ride in the car or on an airplane. For many of us, reading or listening to stories is one of our favorite forms of recreation and relaxation. Stories help us understand others. Hearing a personal story allows us to go beyond the surface of understanding someone.
So we've been joined by a very special guest now, our friend Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
All right. So what we're going to concentrate on, Jen, is oral storytelling, right? So your ability to tell a story that's going to engage and interest an audience. So without any instruction, what we're going to do is go through this a couple of times. I'm going to ask you to tell a story, anything at all, an interesting thing that happened to you. Could be your first day at college. It could be first day at a job, a wedding you attended, an event, the day you were running late for a flight, just something that was interesting that kind of happened to you. And what we'll do after we've heard the story, we'll try it a few different ways, give you a bit of coaching and give you a bit of information in between to help you really sort of hone and craft that oral storytelling skill. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, awesome. Right.
Brave girl.
Yes, Diane, thank you so much for agreeing to take part. So first thing, without any other instruction, Jen, over to you. Tell us a story.
That's my story. Everything turned out fine, and she's still here in the other room.
Awesome.
Aww.
Thank you very much. All right, here's what's going to happen now, Jen, is I'm going to tell a story. What I want you to do is write down, if you can, or memorize, or just get an idea of what is it that I'm doing.
Okay.
In telling the story. All right. Here we go. And that's my story. All right. Sorry, is there something wrong? Oh, right. So I thought there was something wrong there with your monitor.
Sorry, I wasn't ready that it ended, and I didn't know it was ending.
So technique wise, what was I doing that you noticed?
Acting out.
Okay, 1 second. I'm going to write this. I'm going to write this down as you make a note of it on my blackboard.
Ooh,
So
look at that shiny new blackboard.
So what was I doing?
You were acting out the different characters.
Spot on. So I was acting out. So I was being quite expressive, right? With my words and my physicality. It was in the first person, right? Is an important part. Lots of sensory data, sensory information, so that the smells, the sights, and the sounds. So I was explaining my emotion, how I was feeling. It was happening right now. It was happening in the present tense. It wasn't, and then I said this, and then he did that. And I played the different characters. All right. So here's what we're going to do, Jen. I'm going to get you to do yours again.
I was walking in the forest with my dog by the lake.
Before we let you go, Jen, talk me through that process in terms of thinking about, because the first time you did it, typically when we run these sessions, that people do exactly as you did. They just want to get through it, tell the timeline. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. I'm done, kind of thing, right? When we're oral storytelling, we've got to use those tools. We've got to use pauses. We've got to use our voice a bit more. We've got to, talking to the woman, play the characters and embellish it a little bit. It's a little bit of a performance side to it. But more importantly, I think it's that being in the moment and connecting with our emotion as we tell the story. That's far more engaging than hearing a list of events that have already taken place, right? If I can be there alongside with you, walking in the wood, smelling it, experiencing the emotion that you experience, because we can't help but experience the emotion that you have as you're displaying it, because we respond in kind and we're empathetic. And it's a really powerful tool in order to be able to create rapport with people, to persuade, to share your experience with somebody else, brings them on board. And it's a really good tool. And you chose a very personal story that's related to something that's incredibly important to you in your life. And personally, I think they're the best stories.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that process like for you in going through it and thinking about the story, just in terms of the kind of technique side of things?
very cool because the story completely changed. You don't know who you're talking to sometimes, and so you don't know how they're going to react. And if you're like, oh yeah, my dog spirit, they're like, okay, wackadoo, you know. So sometimes it's a little bit like, how do I want to tell this? Are these people, like, how much can I connect? How much can I share? It's usually where I tend to pull back if people get. And so that was kind of my thing. I'm like, I knew I could do the dog story, but then it was like, I wasn't sure how much to share.
But I love that observation around the story changes, because once you connect to what's important, but in terms of, it really shows the technique, right? It really shows the how different and how much more engaging and how much more you draw us in by telling a really heartfelt, emotional story. And the first time you told it, not that emotional.
Right.
Because there's too much detail in it, too much irrelevant detail. And then you saw the ball, and then you quickly moved on, because I know probably you didn't want to get to that part about the ball, and you were conscious that it might bring up some emotion, so you went past it quickly. And there was lots of multiple stages. I was a bit confused of what was happening in the story to start off with. And so you simplified it. You gave a lot more richness and texture to it by describing the forest and that kind of thing. And it enabled us to be right there along with you. Now, once we're there alongside with you, we're in. You can take us wherever you want to, right? As long as you don't say that. And then I did cocaine with Michael Stipe at Burning Man or whatever. What the fuck? You know what I mean? You know, as long as it's relatable and simple, we're right alongside with you. As long as we can experience those pure human emotions. And the first time in telling it, what you're doing is saying what you did, right? Mm. Right? What you did, I did this, I did that, he said this, and I said this, and he's like this, and I'm like this, right? That's telling me about the human doing, what you were doing. What's far more interesting is the human being, right? So what was happening to you in that moment? What were the physical and mental and emotional sensations that were happening? That's so much more, draws us in so much more, right? And funnily enough, when we start to talk about things that are personal to us, our voice changes. Our whole presence changes. Our physicality changes. When we're having a conversation, you know, we're talking to someone about some real true emotion stuff, we drop down into our voice, into the lower part of our register and all that sort of stuff, which is far more easy to listen to than, you know, and then I did this, and then I did that, and then I did, and that's not what you did. You did that a bit, but not totally. But anyway, and then I did this, and then I did that. And one time in band camp, there's none of that. You drop into your natural engaging voice.
You amend the story based on your audience. So if you're telling the story because you want to relate it to a new project that's launching at work, and it's a new beginning, just like you getting a puppy is a new beginning, maybe you don't go so deep with some of the spiritual stuff. You just talk about how powerful endings can be and new beginnings are. But if you're telling the story at a wine and cheese night with a bunch of your closest friends, then maybe they deserve, right, to hear that whole story, and you go deep. But the important thing is you always determine who deserves your story and how much of it they get.
All right. Anything before we let Jen go from you, Carrie?
No, Jen, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. This is awesome.
Anything from you, Jen, before we let you go?
I am loving Holistic Buffet. I was binged it.
Spoken like a true marketeer, and we don't even employ you. Amazing.
It was really because I listen to all the fun, entertaining type of podcasts, and so much of what you guys were talking about totally resonated with me, and I haven't been able to hear those conversations with people in my life recently, or talk about deeper emotions and talk about being vulnerable at all. I was like, it was just so refreshing to hear. I'm really excited to kind of follow this along and do the exercises. And it was a joy. So thank you.
And thank you
so much.
That's so
lovely to hear. I love hearing that. Jen. Yeah.
We love you very much. Thank you, Jen. We'll let you go. And you can take that dog out for a walk. It's probably being driven mad in your apartment going, come on, what is happening? Get off that. You're sitting all day on that bloody laptop. Let's go chase some critters. God damn it.
Every day. Yep.
All right.
All
Thank
right. Well, enjoy your walk. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Carrie, that's it for this episode. Do you want to do the outro? Because I'm gonna suggest that we just do the outro, because every time we try to do it at the same time, it sounds awful. So
It does.
So-
It's a mess.
all right. So I'll tell you what, don't forget to join us for Meze for the Mind, Banquet for the Body, and Soup for the Soul.
Until next time.
Here on Stephen Carey's Holistic Buffet. You do that bit.
Okay. Until next time, here at Stephen Carey's Holistic Buffet.